My dad looked me dead in the eye at Christmas dinner and said, "You're a burden, and you can't live with us anymore." Right there, in front of everyone, with the turkey still steaming on the table. The same man I'd been paying rent for. The same man whose electric bill I'd covered for 5 years. The same man who hadn't worked a single day since I was 21. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just sat there thinking about every deposit I'd made, every sacrifice I'd swallowed, every time I told myself family helps family. The next morning, I cut off every single payment. And within 48 hours, he was at my friend's door trying to break it down. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up and tell you how it really went down. I always thought Christmas would soften people. That even in a house like ours, where nobody really talked and everyone walked on eggshells, we'd at least have that one night where we pretended things were okay. I was wrong. The moment my dad's words hit the air, something shifted. Not just in the room. In me. Because once the shock wore off, I realized something I'd been avoiding for years. This wasn't new. This had been coming. We lived in one of those suburbs where everyone else's house looked perfect. Neat lawns, nice cars, Christmas lights that actually worked. Our house. Different story. Bills stacked on the kitchen counter. Drafty windows. A heater that sounded like it was dying every time it kicked on. But the lights stayed on. The water ran. The internet worked. All because of me. I started paying bills when I was 21. It was supposed to be temporary. Just until your dad gets back on his feet, my mom said. Then it became groceries. Then water. Then internet. Then everything. I told myself I was helping. That's what you do for family, right? What I didn't realize was that I was carrying everyone while slowly breaking myself. My mom had this way of making everything seem normal when it wasn't. "Your father's just stressed," she'd say, stirring pasta with the same tired look on her face. She worked part-time somewhere she never talked about. And whenever money came up, she acted like she had no control over anything. Maybe that's how she survived. Pretending she didn't see me drowning. Then there was Chloe, my 17-year-old sister. Sharp as hell and way too aware of everything. She'd learned early how to read a room before walking into it. I'd catch her watching me during dinner, like she was waiting for someone to finally say what we all knew. Nobody ever did. And my dad? Brian hadn't worked in years. The official story was that his company downsized. The real story? He didn't like people telling him what to do. He spent his days on the couch, TV droning in the background, muttering about how the world didn't respect men like him anymore. But he sure respected the groceries I bought. The hot water I paid for. The Wi-Fi that kept him entertained. I thought if I kept giving, maybe one day he'd see me. Not as a paycheck. As his daughter. That was the lie I lived on. Until Christmas dinner, when he called me a burden like it was nothing. Like he'd been thinking it for months and finally felt like saying it out loud. That's when everything clicked. This was exactly how he saw me. And staying was worse than leaving. I didn't sleep that night. I just stared at the ceiling, replaying it over and over. "You're a burden. You can't live with us anymore." The words didn't just hurt. They carved into me. Each time I replayed them, it felt like another reminder that the man I'd protected didn't think I deserved a place in his home. But the weirdest part? I felt clear. For the first time in years, I knew exactly what I had to do. Around 3 in the morning, I got up and walked through the house. The living room smelled like pine and leftover food. The tree lights still blinked, pretending nothing had happened. My dad's plate sat on the table, crumbs everywhere. It looked so normal, and that made it worse. My mom had left her mug on the counter. Tea gone cold. She always cleaned up before bed. Not that night. When I passed Chloe's door, I heard her shift. She wasn't sleeping either. The next morning, while everyone was still quiet, I started packing. Not dramatically. Just calmly. Like someone who was done pretending. Each folded sweater felt like a decision. Each closed suitcase like a boundary I should have set years ago. Halfway through, Chloe knocked softly and slipped inside. She crossed her arms like she was bracing herself. "You're leaving," she whispered. "I am." She sat on the floor next to my suitcase, pulling her hoodie sleeves over her hands. "He didn't mean it." I looked at her. Really looked at her. 17 years old and already carrying the weight of two parents who never learned how to love right. "Yeah," I said quietly. "He did." Her eyes watered, but she didn't cry. Chloe never gave them that satisfaction. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "Figure it out. Starting with stopping the bills." Her head snapped up. "Maya, they can't afford anything without you." "I know." She blinked. Not because she disagreed. Because she'd never heard me sound so final. For years, I'd lived in this cycle. They'd take. I'd give. They'd demand. I'd deliver. And the moment I needed basic human decency back, my father shattered every illusion I'd held on to. Leaving wasn't revenge. It was survival. But part of me wondered if they'd finally understand what I'd been carrying once they felt the weight themselves. Not because I wanted them to suffer, but because consequences were the only language my parents understood. By noon, my suitcase was by the door. Winter sun came through the blinds in thin stripes. Everything felt suspended, like the whole house was holding its breath. For the first time in years, I wasn't scared of saying no. I was scared of what would happen if I didn't. And as I reached for the doorknob, one truth settled in my chest. The real burden was never me. I left before the sun was fully up. The sky was still that pale winter gray that makes everything feel quiet. The house didn't stir when the door clicked behind me. No footsteps. No wait, let's talk. Just silence. Which made sense. That's all they ever gave back. I drove to Alexis's apartment downtown with my suitcase jammed in the back seat. Her place was tiny, barely enough room for two people in the kitchen without bumping into each other. But when she opened the door, everything felt different. Lighter. Like the walls weren't holding years of disappointment. "You look like you haven't slept in forever," she said, pulling me into a hug. "I probably haven't." She didn't push for details. That was Alexis. She made space first, asked questions later. I set my suitcase next to her couch, which would be my bed for who knows how long. It sagged in the middle, but it was freedom. The first real shift happened around noon. My phone buzzed. Then again. Then steady vibrations. 3 missed calls from Mom. 4 from Dad. 2 texts from Chloe. They're freaking out. "Call me." I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I made coffee in Alexis's chipped mug and sat on the edge of the couch, letting the steam warm my face. The simplicity felt luxurious after years of being responsible for everything and everyone. By evening, they switched tactics. No more calls. Just panic. Mom texted, "Maya, something's wrong with the power. Can you check? Internet is out. Water pressure is low. Please answer." I stared at the messages. A strange mix of sadness and resolve knotted in my chest. They were finally feeling what I'd been carrying alone. I typed one sentence, "I told you." I stopped paying the bills. 3 dots blinked. Vanished. Blinked again. But why would you do that? I almost laughed. Before I could respond, Chloe texted, "Dad's losing it. He said this is your fault. He said you're punishing them." Punishing. Interesting word, considering I'd only stepped away. They were just learning how cold it got without someone shielding them. That night, I logged into my accounts. Not to check on them. To protect myself. I removed my name from every payment. Internet. Water. Electric. All the things that had quietly kept the family functioning while they pretended stability was free. The moment I clicked confirm, something inside me settled. A boundary finally drawn all the way through. The next morning, I woke to a different kind of alert. Suspicious login attempt detected. My heart thudded. Hard. I opened the banking app. 3 failed login attempts. One attempted password reset. I didn't need a detective. I knew who was behind it. My father couldn't control me anymore. So now he wanted my money. Alexis saw my face when I walked into the kitchen. Maya, what happened? I held up my phone. They're not just panicking. They're desperate. And desperate people make dangerous decisions. The moment I saw those login attempts, something snapped into focus. Not fear. Clarity. This wasn't just a family falling apart. This was what happened when people who'd leaned on you their whole lives suddenly realized the ground was gone. I changed every password I had. Banking, email, streaming, everything. Then I called the bank and had them lock my account so tight that nobody could touch a cent without verification that might as well require a fingerprint scan. By the time I finished, my phone buzzed again. Chloe, Dad's yelling. He said you sabotaged the house. Mom's crying. They don't know what to do. I stared at the message, thumb hovering. I didn't want this for Chloe. She was just a kid trying to survive something she didn't create. But every time guilt started rising, I reminded myself, I didn't do this to them. They did this to themselves. I called her. She picked up on the first ring, whispering like she was hiding. He's losing it, she breathed. I think he tried to get into your accounts. I know. She cursed under her breath. Of course he did. A crash echoed behind her. Something heavy. Maybe a chair hitting the floor. Her breath hitched. I have to go. Please be careful. That last sentence stuck with me long after the call ended. Around 7 that night, Alexis and I were on the couch watching some old sitcom, neither of us really paying attention, when there was a pounding at the door. Not a knock. A hit. Hard. The kind that shakes the walls. Alexis muted the TV. Maya. My stomach dropped. I already knew. I walked slowly to the peephole. When I looked through, my breath caught. Brian. Red-faced. Jaw clenched. Fists balled at his sides like he was ready to break through with his bare hands. Maya, he shouted. Open the door. Alexis stood behind me, whispering, do not open that. He pounded again. Harder. You think you can walk away? You think you can take everything after what we've done for you? That last part almost made me laugh. Done for me? What exactly? I didn't answer. I backed away and grabbed my phone. Another hit rattled the frame. Open the door! I'm calling the police, I said loud enough for him to hear. You wouldn't dare, he spat. I dialed. The dispatcher answered calmly. 911, what's your emergency? My father is trying to break into my friend's apartment. He's pounding on the door and shouting. He's not supposed to be here. Brian must have heard me because suddenly the pounding stopped. For one breath, everything went still. Then he yelled, you ungrateful little. Officers are on their way, the dispatcher said. 2 minutes later, sirens echoed through the hallway. Alexis counted the footsteps as they approached. Firm. Disciplined. Decisive. Then a voice boomed. Sir, step back from the door. More shouting. A scuffle. Then silence. When I opened the door, 2 officers were cuffing Brian. His chest heaved with rage. But when he saw me, his expression shifted. Not to remorse. To hatred. So cold it made my skin prickle. You did this, he growled. No, I said quietly. You did. They led him away. But the story didn't end there. The next morning, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I let it ring out, but a text followed. You're going to regret this. A chill ran down my spine. The tone. The rhythm. I didn't need a signature. He was out. Someone had bailed him. I drove to the old house with Alexis by my side. I didn't want to go alone. Chloe had texted, Mom's acting weird. You should come get your things before she does something. When we pulled into the driveway, something felt wrong immediately. My car. The one I'd left safely parked at Alexis's. It was sitting in front of the garage. Driver's seat pushed all the way back. Glove box open. Gas tank nearly empty. Alexis whispered, "Maya, they took your car." I stepped out slowly, chest tight. Mom burst out the front door. Not like a greeting. Like an accusation. "You called the cops on your father," she snapped. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "You stole my car," I replied. Voice steady. "It was sitting there and used. We needed it." "That doesn't make it yours." Every word out of her mouth was an excuse. Not an explanation. "I want my keys," I said. She crossed her arms. "I don't have them." "Then you won't mind if I call the police again?" Her face faltered. Just a flicker. But I caught it. Without another word, she went inside. A moment later, she came back and threw the keys at my feet like trash. "Happy now?" she snapped. "No," I said. "But I will be." Inside, Chloe rushed toward me, whispering, "Mom took your laptop. She pawned it." My chest tightened. "Where is it?" "She said she needed money." I tried to stop her. I turned to my mother. "Did you pawn my laptop?" She didn't look guilty. She looked annoyed. "You left it here. That makes it ours. We needed the money. That was it." I pulled out my phone and dialed the police again. Her eyes widened. "Maya, don't you dare." "Yes, hello," I said as she stared, horrified. "I'd like to report stolen property." When the officers arrived, my mother tried everything. Denial. Tears. Guilt trips. But Chloe stood beside me and told the truth. They cuffed her on the driveway. Neighbors peeked through blinds. The winter air tasted sharp. My mother pleaded. Sobbed. Said things no mother should say to a child trying to reclaim what was rightfully hers. I didn't move. As they placed her in the car, I felt a strange, steady calm settle inside me. Not satisfaction. Not triumph. Freedom. The kind that comes when the last thread binding you to a toxic past finally snaps. I gathered the rest of my things while Chloe helped quietly, her hands shaking slightly. "You're really leaving," she whispered. "I already left," I said. She nodded, tears welling but not falling. "I'm coming too. When I'm 18. I believed her. As Alexis and I loaded the final box into her car, headlights appeared at the end of the street. A familiar silhouette stepped out. Brian. I didn't flinch. I didn't speak. I just looked at him. The way you look at a storm. Inevitable but survivable. "If you come near me again," I said through the open window, "I'll file a restraining order." His jaw tightened. "You think you're better than us?" For the first time, I said it, "I know I am." We drove away. And I didn't look back. In the weeks that followed, everything that once felt tangled slowly unraveled into something clear. My mother faced legal consequences for pawning my laptop. For the first time, I wasn't the one cleaning up the mess. The charges weren't extreme, but they were enough. Accountability. Something she'd avoided my entire life. My father, furious and flailing, bounced between short-lived jobs and angry phone calls I never answered. I blocked every number before the voicemails could pile up. Chloe kept me updated quietly. Carefully. The house grew colder, literally, after the utilities shut off for good. She told me about the day the water stopped running. How my mom stood at the sink turning the handle over and over like it would magically work again. How my dad blamed everyone except himself. Eventually, they couldn't keep up with overdue payments and had to leave. They moved into a rundown apartment across town. Thin walls. Flickering hallway lights. The kind of place where you hear every argument from your neighbors and pretend you don't. Their downfall wasn't dramatic. It was slow, inevitable, and heartbreakingly predictable. Meanwhile, my life began to feel like it was actually mine. I signed a lease on a small studio with huge windows and no ghosts in the corners. I bought my own furniture. Made my own decisions. Lived on my own terms. I learned how quiet peace can be. How mornings feel when you're not dreading what comes next. How good it feels to open a bank account and see money that's actually yours. And Chloe? She was counting the days until 18. We'd text late at night. She'd tell me about her college plans, her escape route, how she'd been saving money from her part-time job in secret. For the first time, the future didn't feel heavy. When Chloe finally turned 18 and walked out of that house for good, she called me from the bus stop. Breathless and free. I drove to pick her up. As she slid into the passenger seat, she whispered, "We made it." And for the first time, I believed her. We both did. Pain didn't define our story anymore. Choice did. The choice to leave. The choice to protect ourselves. The choice to build something better. Thanks for listening. If you connected with this story, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to comment and subscribe for more stories about breaking free, finding strength, and choosing yourself when no one else will. Because sometimes, walking away isn't giving up. It's finally standing up.